Dust motes danced in the afternoon sun. They swirled through the musty air of the old house. John, a young writer seeking solitude, had just moved in. He placed his bags down, each thud echoing in the silence. The house, with its creaking floorboards and dimly lit corridors, felt heavy with unspoken stories. The previous owner, an elderly gentleman, had passed away. He felt a chill despite the summer's day. He explored the house, each room filled with antique furniture, draped in white sheets. John reached the last room at the end of the hallway. It was locked. He tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Curiosity sparked within him. That night, as John slept, a sound woke him. It was a creak, slow and deliberate, like footsteps in the hallway. But the silence that followed was thick with anticipation. Something felt wrong. Days turned into weeks. John settled into a routine. His days spent writing, his nights haunted by the strange noises in the house. He heard whispers, soft and indistinct, carried on the wind. Shadows seemed to move in the periphery of his vision. One evening, while working in his study, a book flew off the shelf. It landed with a loud thud, pages fluttering open to reveal a passage underlined in faded ink. The passage spoke of a hidden room, a secret never to be revealed. John tried to ignore the growing unease. He told himself it was just the house settling, but deep down a seed of fear had been planted. He couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched. He found himself drawn to the locked room at the end of the hall. The unanswered question gnawed at him. What lay hidden behind that door? And could it be connected to the strange happenings in the house? One stormy night, as thunder shook the old house, John woke with a start. A voice, low and guttural, echoed through his room. "Find me," it whispered, the sound chilling him to the bone. He sat up in bed, heart pounding, every sense on high alert. He searched for the source of the voice, but found nothing. The room was empty, the shadows cast by the lightning storm dancing menacingly on the walls. He tried to convince himself it was a dream, a figment of his imagination, but deep down, he knew the truth. The house was speaking to him, and it wasn't finished yet. Fear, cold and sharp, gripped John's chest. He couldn't ignore this. He had to find out what or who was behind the voice, what secret the old house held. Determined to find answers, John began researching the house's history. He scoured local archives, poring over dusty records and faded photographs. He learned that the house had a long and troubled past, filled with whispers of tragedy and misfortune. He discovered that the previous owner, Mr. Abernathy, had been a recluse, shunning contact with the outside world. Rumors swirled about his family, whispers of a wife who had vanished without a trace, and a son who had died under mysterious circumstances. John felt a growing sense of dread as he pieced together the fragments of the past. He began to suspect that the phantom voice belonged to Mr. Abernathy, and that it was leading him towards a dark secret buried within the house's walls. He knew he had to find the key to the locked room. It was the only way to uncover the truth and silence the phantom voice that haunted his waking hours. Driven by his need for answers, John searched tirelessly for the key to the locked room. He scoured every nook and cranny of the house, his desperation growing with each passing hour. He checked beneath floorboards, behind loose bricks, and inside hollowed-out books, but to no avail. Just when his hope began to dwindle, he stumbled upon a hidden compartment in the attic. Inside, nestled amongst cobwebs and forgotten trinkets, lay a tarnished silver key. John's heart raced as he grabbed the key. This had to be it. He rushed to the locked room, his hand trembling with anticipation. As he inserted the key into the lock and turned, he could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. The door creaked open, releasing a musty odor that sent shivers down his spine. He stepped inside, his eyes struggling to adjust to the darkness. As his vision cleared, he gasped, his blood turning to ice. The room was dimly lit by a single flickering light bulb. Dust caked every surface, and cobwebs hung like macabre decorations from the ceiling. In the center of the room stood a large wooden table, upon which lay a scattering of objects, old photographs, handwritten letters, and a leather-bound diary. John cautiously approached the table, his heart pounding in his chest. He picked up one of the photographs. It showed a young woman with piercing blue eyes and a warm smile. On the back, written in faded ink, were the words, "My beloved Eleanor." Next, he examined the letters. They were all addressed to Mr. Abernathy, and they were filled with pleas for forgiveness and declarations of love. It was clear that these letters were from Eleanor, and that their relationship had been a tumultuous one. Finally, John reached for the diary. As he opened its worn pages, a musty odor filled his nostrils. He began to read, and with each word, a chilling truth began to unfold. The diary entries revealed a tale of forbidden love, jealousy, and ultimately, murder. The diary entries painted a tragic picture of Mr. Abernathy's life. He had fallen deeply in love with Eleanor, but their relationship was forbidden. She was already married, trapped in an unhappy union. Despite the risks, their love affair continued, hidden from the prying eyes of society. However, their secret was eventually discovered by Eleanor's husband. Consumed by rage and jealousy, he confronted the lovers in the very room where John now stood. A struggle ensued, and in a moment of blind fury, Eleanor's husband struck Mr. Abernathy, delivering a fatal blow. John's blood ran cold as he read the final entry in the diary. Mr. Abernathy, racked with guilt and grief over the loss of his beloved Eleanor, had sealed the room, vowing to never speak of the tragedy again. He had lived out his days haunted by the memory of that fateful night. As John closed the diary, he felt a cold hand on his shoulder. He whirled around, his heart pounding in his chest. Standing before him, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and anger, was the translucent figure of Mr. Abernathy. Mr. Abernathy's ghostly form flickered in the dim light. His voice, a low whisper that sent shivers down John's spine, broke the silence. "You have uncovered my secret," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of sorrow and relief. John, though terrified, found his voice. "What happened to Eleanor?" he asked, his words echoing in the silent room. Abernathy's form flickered again, his sadness palpable. "Her husband buried her body within the walls of this house," he whispered, his voice filled with anguish. He wanted to hide his crime, to erase her from existence. John's gaze darted around the room, his mind struggling to comprehend the horror that had unfolded within these walls. He realized now why the voice had led him here. It wasn't just about revealing the truth, it was about seeking justice for Eleanor. "I will help you find her," John said, his voice firm with resolve. Abernathy nodded gratefully, his form shimmering as he moved closer. As Abernathy's form drew closer, John felt a sudden surge of fear. The temperature in the room plummeted, and a cold wind whipped around them. The diary on the table flew open, its pages flipping wildly as if possessed. "Be careful," Abernathy's voice whispered urgently, his form flickering violently. "His rage still lingers here. He doesn't want her to be found." Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. John stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear the sound of heavy breathing close by, and he knew he was not alone. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers trembling as he tried to activate the flashlight. A pair of icy hands clamped down on his arms, holding him fast. He struggled against the grip, but it was no use. He was trapped. "You will not interfere," a voice hissed in his ear, the sound filled with rage and malice. John recognized the voice instantly. It belonged to the man who had murdered Eleanor, and he was back for revenge. Panic surged through John as he struggled against the unseen assailant. He thrashed and kicked, but the grip on his arms only tightened. Just when he thought all was lost, he remembered the silver key in his pocket. With a surge of adrenaline, he brought his knee up sharply, connecting with a sickening thud. His attacker cried out in pain, momentarily loosening his grip. John seized the opportunity. He wrenched free, fumbling for the key. His fingers closed around its cold metal, and he blindly swung it towards his attacker. He heard a gasp, followed by the sound of something heavy hitting the floor. He didn't wait to see what had happened. He ran towards the door, his heart pounding in his chest. Finally, he heard the satisfying click as the lock engaged. He was safe for now. John didn't waste any time. He fled the house, not stopping until he reached the safety of his car. As he drove away, he could see the silhouette of the old house receding in his rearview mirror, its dark windows like empty eyes watching him go. He knew he couldn't stay silent about what he had witnessed. He contacted the authorities, telling them everything he had learned about Eleanor's murder. The police searched the house, and just as Abernathy had revealed, they found her remains hidden within the walls. Justice was served for Eleanor, her memory finally laid to rest. But for John, The experience left an indelible mark. He never returned to the house, but he could never quite escape the chilling echo of Abernathy's voice or the haunting memory of Eleanor's tragic fate. And so, the old house stood silent once more, its secrets buried once again within its walls. But some secrets, like whispers on the wind, are destined to be carried on, echoing through time, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lie hidden beneath the surface of even the most ordinary-seeming places.